Whenever the media, including the Drudge Report here, whenever the mainstream media wants to focus our attention on one particular thing, such as the Epstein distraction with Trump, which, I've been reporting on it too. So I guess you could say I've been distracted by it as well. But I always keep my eyes open. I always try and put eyes in the back of my head because there's something, when they got us this focused on something, there's something else they don't want us looking at. Always. And I've said that for years. Always take a look around when they've got something like this in the front of us, right in front of us all the time. I mean, you can't escape this story right now. I don't care if it's mainstream news or alternative media, whatever. You're going to find news about Trump and Epstein and how his MAGA base is now revolting against him, right? Well, what else are they doing that they're not telling us about? Well, it's right here. Trump's Genius Act, well, it's a CBDC. You know, the thing that he said that he campaigned against, right? He also said he released the Epstein files. But anyway, this Genius Act will allow the government to punish vaccine mandate refusers by freezing their bank accounts. So, yeah, under the cover of the Epstein distraction, the most monumentous coup over the U.S. Constitution in U.S. history is quietly taking place in the form of Trump's pet obsession, the Genius Act of 2025, likely to be voted on this week. And guess what? They voted to advance it. Breaking news, the House has just voted to advance crypto bills, the Genius Crypto Act, after multiple members flipped their votes following a meeting with Trump. This rule failed in the House yesterday, so Trump brought 12 GOP nay voters to the Oval Office and convinced them to vote yes. Well, of course they did. Who can make war with the beast? No one. What God has written will come to pass. There's no turning back from his hand of judgment on the earth. Pray, keep the faith, and endure to the end. Those who endure to the end, the same shall be saved. There is no pre-tribulation rapture. We're already in it. So here we go. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she voted no on this rule, on the rule for the Genius Act, because it doesn't include a ban on CBDCs, central bank digital currency, because that's what it is. And because Speaker Johnson did not allow us to submit amendments to the Genius Act. Of course not. They can't have any dissension here. So what's the Genius Act do? Well, it creates a digital dollar, the stablecoin, which would likely eventually replace all cash and would enable governments to freeze the accounts of anyone declared in violation of the law of lawful federal or state executive branch regulations, such as vaccine mandates passed down in 2021 by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Don't like it? Don't want to get a shot? That's fine. We're going to turn off your money. That's what's going to happen. Trump is doing the exact opposite of what he pledged to an audience soon after he was elected in November of 24. He said he would ban CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, but stablecoins are in every important respect CBDCs. So here's Trump proposing to ban central bank digital currencies in November 2024.
Donald Trump has sworn off all CBDCs in his rally in New Hampshire on Tuesday, saying they would be a threat to American freedom.
Also making another promise to protect Americans from government tyranny. As your president, I will never allow the creation of a central bank digital currency. You know about that? You know what they're doing. Such a currency would give a federal government, our federal government, the absolute control over your money. They could take your money, you wouldn't even know it was gone.
And that's what he plans on doing. What he campaigned against. You see, you always have to look at what these people do. Don't listen to what they say. They'll promise you anything to get elected. All the time. George Bush Sr. said it himself. Plain as day. He would do anything, say anything to get elected. So it says a permitted payment stablecoin issuer shall be treated as a financial institution and shall be subject to all federal laws applicable to a financial institution located in the United States. Policies and procedures to block, freeze, and reject specific or impermissible transactions that violate state laws or rules or regulations. There it is. There's the statute that would lock you out of your bank account should you refuse not only say a vaccine, but whatever else they decide is mandatory. You refuse it, your money's cut off. And If you make any anti-Semitic posts, I bet your money gets cut off too. So just saying, this is going to extend far beyond just mandatory vaccinations. So it says here a message from the president to the House following the Senate passage of the Genius Act. Get it to my desk ASAP. No delays, no add-ons. Wow. Wants it ASAP. Well, the House just voted to advance it, so it won't be long now. And so I'm not going to read all of this to you because it gets quite lengthy. But freezing all money earned or inherited by a person in practical terms amounts to a confiscation of all assets without due process. Well, there is no Constitution anymore. There hasn't been since September or March 13th of 2020 when Trump signed that emergency order. So Constitution is already down. Thus, not only would have COVID vaccine mandate refusers been devoid of income upon termination, they would also have been denied access to their savings. These moons in the name of public health would have been cleared by a significant part, or cheered, I should say, by a significant part of the population. Yeah, back then it sure would have been. The soft power would have been viewed as kinder and gentler than forced removal to quarantine camps as was actually ordered by the power-drunk politicians in Australia. The mandates were not passed by Congress, but by a whim of the executive branch under the Biden administration, which Trump is, taking the executive orders on steroids at this point, which also mandated companies with over 100 employees must show that all their employees were vaccinated in order to be in compliance with federal OSHA regulations. Similarly, the executive branch, whether under Trump or anyone else, has enormous latitude to govern by executive or federal agency regulation, which might be found unconstitutional in the courts or legislated against in Congress, but not before possibly impacting the lives of millions of people. And once you've been vaccinated, you can't get unvaccinated. Exactly right. Just like nobody can now. It's permanent, and the changes that it makes are permanent. So executive branch dictates can make rules for what constitutes acceptable positive identification, such as requiring facial recognition scans for real ID, or rules declaring certain public spaces off limits for protests, such as the Capitol grounds on January 6th. The Genius Act also allows digital accounts to be frozen for alleged violation of state regulations issued by state governors. Oh, so you didn't violate a federal rule today? Well, you might have violated your state rule, or maybe a local county rule. God only knows anymore. They're making up new rules and regulations every day, and we don't know what the heck is going on. So the digital credits, which is essentially what they are, created by Trump and the big bank's Genius Act, are called stablecoins. They're so named because they're backed by the US dollar, which is in turn backed by nothing. But as editor-in-chief of Bitcoin magazine, Mark Goodman explains, they are CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, except instead of being directly issued by a central bank, which in the US is the Federal Reserve, they're issued by the largest of private corporations, according to the rules of the central bank. In other words, there's no difference as it affects the average person on the street. Bitcoin magazine editor Mark Goodwin explains that Trump's stablecoins are essentially the CBDCs he promised to ban and has in an executive order in February 2025. Stablecoins are the bait and switch for direct issue government CBDCs. Stablecoins can be programmed exactly like how we fear CBDCs will be programmed. They're exactly the same tokenized mechanism. They can be taken out of your wallet can be blacklisted. A lot of things that we fear about CBDCs are totally available within the tool set of stablecoins. And there you go. And that's just one part of the control grid that Trump is building. It's just one piece. Other parts are the massive Stargate AI data centers, which are necessary to hold the gargantuan database of records on each and every American, the so-called Real ID, which is essentially a biometrics, such as a facial recognition scan identifier, which will link to every bit of data on every person. This data will then be combined, or combed through, and evaluated constantly by AI. And, think about it. What has Apple done over the past 10 years with their smartphones? You had the fingerprint scanners, and now you've got facial recognition scanners. And they've programmed it into every phone and made it pretty much mandatory for their phones to be used anymore. Why? To get you ready for this. This data will then be combed through and evaluated constantly by AI. Ultra-high resolution street cameras will track, record, and monitor every person's movement. And an extrajudicial social credit score system like China's will rate and rank citizens according to their behavior. And here's a link to an article describing that. An excellent overview on what Trump is doing is given by Catherine Austin Fitts, a former Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development under George Bush Sr. She warns that Trump is moving very fast. He said no CBDCs. I don't know if you've read the Genius Act, which is the new plan for stablecoins. Okay, a CBDC would be issued by the Federal Reserve. The guy who owns the New York Fed are all going to create subsidiaries and issue stablecoins, which will be interoperable and can work with the social credit system. There's a video for you to watch that there. And so I'm going to stop there. Actually, I'm going to stop right here. CBDCs would create an authoritarian surveillance state. It's the final nail in the coffin. Once they've controlled your money, they've got you locked down. They don't have to physically lock you down with handcuffs or chains and all that. All they have to do is cut off your money and cut you off from society, which is what this would do. So, like I said, whenever they want us to pay attention to one particular thing, and they're harping on it all the time like they are on Drudge and everywhere else, then we need to take a look around and see what else is going on. And in this case, it's called the Genius Act. And I'll put the links up like I always do. And that is it for now. God bless, take care. Johnny Storm, Don't Speak News.